Good morning, my girl. Last topic was Lady Jane Grey, and I was so sad to describe her life. Today, continue for the topic of Tudor dynasty, Mary First. She was daughter, between Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Over all Tudor dynasty, their kings and queens insisted to retain their DNA. Mary also, she quite insisted to remain her DNA. Therefore, she was very eager to get married with good family. When she was small, almost engaged with her cousin Karl V, leader of Habsburg family, but failed. And, over 20 years later, Karl V recommended her to get married with his son Philip. Karl V was 16 years elder than Mary, and Philip was 11 years younger than her. Once, Mary saw a portrait of Philip, immediately gone crazy for him. And, Mary thought, if she get married with Philip, and deliver successor, Mary does not need to give her status as queen to Elizabeth, her stepsister. Mary hated Anne Boleyn, and, consequently, hated Elizabeth very much. Because of Anne, Mary was forced to be confinement, and scared to be killed. After execution of Anne Boleyn, their relationship improved, for the time being. But, gradually, Mary felt jealousy on Elizabeth. Jealousy of human is, time to time producing tragedy. And, Mary remembered her tough, and pity days of her, whenever saw Elizabeth. Elizabeth behaved humble, and modest, in front of people, and it impressed people. However, after Mary became queen, she started to show her real feeling on her. And, one more big problem between Mary and Elizabeth. Mary was Catholic, and Elizabeth was Protestant. One day, some of Mary's servant alerts Mary, probability of rebellion by Elizabeth. And, Mary immediately decided, the execution of Elizabeth. Once, Elizabeth obtained this information, she kneeled down on Mary, and, begged her for help. Then, Mary forced Elizabeth to go to a mass, every time. Finally, Elizabeth was narrow escaped from her execution. But, unfortunately, when Mary engaged with Philip, 3 numbers of rebellions happened. And, one among these 3, Wyatt's rebellion, people suspected Elizabeth involved. Mary immediately arrested Elizabeth, and, sent her to London Tower. However, no evidences have been found. But, still Mary forced Elizabeth to stay, local palace as in prison. Indeed, it was true that, Wyatt sent letter to Elizabeth. But, Elizabeth burned out this letter, and replied to Wyatt, by verbal. Her reply was, very unclear, and did not say, support, or not support. When, she was imprisoned, she scratched window of her room by her ring. And, eventually, Mary got married with Philip, on 1554. Philip arrived at England with bulky gold, from mine of New World. Do you remember, mother of Catherine of Aragon, Isabella I of Castile? She supported Christopher Columbus, and, he discovered New World. So, Spain was, definitely developing a lot these days. England people scared, they will be under control of Spain, due to this marriage. But, Mary was so exciting. Indeed, she did not have any boyfriends, up to her 38 years old. When Mary was young, she admired to Reginald Pole. But, Henry VIII kicked out him to Roma, when he was young. Actually, Philip was so disappointed, after seeing Mary. But, Philip didn't show his feeling, and apparently, they were happy together. Even his servant from Spain noted that, "Our king is so patient." However, Philip has one big mission: return England to Roman Catholic. In the era of Henry VIII, England jumped out from Roman Catholic. But both Mary and Philip were piety Catholic, and no hesitation for them to let England back to Catholic. When she was young, actually, many difficulties, and only one hope was. Message from Carl V. Catholic encouraged her to live strong life. However, after England established Church of England, already 2 decades passed. And material time, England government forfeiture properties of Catholic Church in England. In case, these properties must back to Catholic Church. Eventually, Julius III, Roman Pope, asked Reginald Pole to visit England. And Reginald Pole promised not to ask return of properties. Then, England returned to Roman Catholic, after 20 years interval. But, Mary took inadequate action, at that moment. She returned, not only Church of England, but also Inquisition as well. Actually, Philip asked her, not to be so radical, and against Inquisition. He said, the Inquisition is okay, in Netherlands, Spain, but, not in England. However, Mary insisted return of Inquisition, and 3rd of February, 1555, one Protestant priest was burned. And, that moment, it seems, Mary was pregnant. However, it was false pregnant, not real pregnant. These days, pressure to deliver successor was, out of our imagination. Anyway, Mary and Philip so disappointed about this false pregnant. From that moment, Philip gave up Mary. And, Mary gone to extreme fanatical action. She increased number of victims. Victims became 300. Among them, priests were 23 persons, and rests were all common people. Due to these 300 victims, people called Mary as Bloody Mary. Actually, when Mary became queen, she promised Edict of Toleration. But, finally, she ate this promise. We are not sure this is because she wanted catch heart of Philip, or some sort of delirium, mental problem. But, because of this, her reputation on the history page was not really good. Just by the chance, Carl V retired from his service as a king that moment. And, Philip backed to Spain. Philip became the King of Spain, Philip II. When he back to England, already 1.5 years has been passed. Of course, Mary was so happy, but, what the purpose of Philip was? Beg military cost, to have a war with France. So, historians defined, Philip did not have feeling of love on Mary, already. Just asking money of England. But, when Philip got married with Mary, he promised not to let England to involve war between Spain and France. But, Mary supported Philip for his war against France. That moment, Mary was not really good in her health, and pale face all the time. After Philip saw her face of Mary, Philip took an action. Approach to Elizabeth, to get married with him. Of course, Philip wanted to retain relationship with England, even after Mary passed away. But finally, this plan was not known by Mary. After 3 months' stay in England, Philip moved to his war, and won for France. England contributed to this victory of the war. But meanwhile, England lost their territory in Europe, Calais, as a consequence of the battle. Therefore, England people blamed Mary, "You sell Calais to Spain." Mary also felt guilty about this, and she said, "When I die, open my heart." There, wrote down Calais, and eventually she got cancer, and recognized her last moment. She was in serious struggling when she was dying. Whether appoint Elizabeth to be next queen or not? Exactly this moment, Elizabeth was in London Tower, and once Mary orders, Mary could eliminate life of Elizabeth by execution. But finally, Mary did not pick up this decision. Mary appointed Elizabeth as her successor. After this appointment, Mary passed away when she was 42 years old. Just only 5 years as a Queen of England. She still insisted on DNA of Tudor dynasty. Maybe she hated her father, Henry VIII. She hated her half-sister Elizabeth. But still she selected Tudor dynasty. Her anniversary of passing was celebrated in England as free from tyranny for 200 years. England people hated her and deny her at all. But my girl, I do not just simply think she was so bad queen. Indeed, if she ordered, she could kill Elizabeth at once. Also, she gave a chance to Lady Jane Grey to survive. Actually, before get married with Philip, she was smart and capable person. Historian described, she executed 300 persons in 3 years and 9 months, but almost all were due to rebellion against Tudor dynasty. Because, consequently, Queen was so popular and great, Mary was underestimated, rather than what she was. By the way, Philip did not join her funeral, and enjoyed 70 years his life. Anyway, Mary handed over her status to Elizabeth, and she produced Golden Age of England as a Queen Elizabeth I. I am going to describe this topic in coming up chapter.
As Janny